You spend 33% of your existence in a state of absolute biological paralysis. You call it sleep. You treat it as a biological necessity, a time to rest your physical avatar so you can wake up and return to the grind of the matrix. You are entirely unaware of what is actually happening to your operating system when you close your eyes. The system loves your ignorance, because while your conscious mind is shut down, your logical firewall is completely disabled. Your subconscious mind, the massive quantum supercomputer that actually renders your 3D reality, is left wide open, completely unprotected, and highly receptive to new code. The Matrix uses this vulnerability against you every single night. It uses the anxiety of tomorrow, the regrets of yesterday, and the low-frequency digital noise you consume right before bed to program you for continued enslavement. You are literally installing a virus into your own mainframe while you sleep. For the chosen one, a true spiritual awakening demands that you take absolute control of this vulnerability. You must stop treating sleep as an escape and start weaponizing it as an upload window. Today, we are going to unlock the hidden architecture of the mind. We are going to decode the terrifying physics of the Hypnagogic Gateway. We will examine the exact 30-minute window before you lose consciousness, where your brainwaves shift from beta to theta, and the vault doors to your reality rendering engine swing wide open. You will learn how to bypass the analytical mind and plant the architectural code of your empire directly into your nervous system, forcing the universe to construct your future while your physical body rests. You are about to learn how to hack the night. But before we initiate this subconscious override, I need a diagnostic ping from your system. What specific low-frequency loop, what fear about tomorrow, or what traumatic playback from the past usually haunts your mind in the minutes before you fall asleep? Go to the data log in the comments right now. Do not write a story of victimhood. State the exact corrupted file that has been hijacking your hypnagogic window. Identify the malware, then authorize the algorithm to overwrite it. Write, "I program the night." To execute this phase of your spiritual awakening, we must first diagnose why your waking attempts to change your reality continually fail. You read the books, you state the affirmations, you try to think positive thoughts and visualize your success during the day, but nothing changes in your 3D interface. The wealth does not render, the sovereignty does not materialize. Why? Because you are trying to rewrite the foundational code of your operating system while the system is actively running. In your waking hours, your brain operates primarily in a beta brainwave state. Beta is the frequency of the analytical mind. It is the frequency of survival, logic, and physical navigation. The beta state is a highly advanced biological firewall. Its entire purpose is to protect the existing programming of your subconscious mind. It filters all incoming data through the lens of your past experiences and your current identity. If your subconscious mainframe is currently programmed with the identity of a struggling, impoverished victim, that is the base code of your reality. When you stand in front of a mirror in a beta state and say, "I am a wealthy architect," the logical firewall immediately scans that statement. It looks at your current bank account. It looks at your past failures. It looks at the physical evidence of the matrix, and it flags the affirmation as a lie. It rejects the new code. Access denied. The beta brainwave state will never allow you to install a program that contradicts the reality it is currently observing. This is why trying to force a spiritual awakening through sheer willpower is a thermodynamic waste of energy. You are banging your fists against a solid titanium door. You are generating massive amounts of electrical resistance, creating thermal friction and exhausting your biological hardware. The matrix relies on this mechanism. It keeps you trapped in beta all day long. It bombards you with notifications, emergencies, deadlines, and pendulum swings. It keeps your analytical mind hyperactive and terrified, ensuring that the firewall is always up and your base programming can never be touched. But the Chosen One does not fight the firewall. The Chosen One waits for the system to power down. The Chosen One understands that there is a highly specific coordinate in the daily cycle where the matrix guard falls asleep, the titanium door dissolves, and the mainframe is left completely exposed. We must now examine the physics of the transition. As your physical avatar prepares for sleep, your brain chemistry begins to alter. Melatonin floods your receptors, your heart rate slows, your breathing deepens, and most importantly, the electrical frequency of your brain begins to drop. You move from the rapid, chaotic beta waves down into the slower, rhythmic alpha waves. In alpha, the logical firewall begins to power down. The analytical mind stops obsessing over the external 3D interface and begins to turn inward. But alpha is only the anteroom. As you sink deeper, you enter a very narrow, highly unstable corridor of consciousness. This is the hypnagogic state. The hypnagogic state occurs in the twilight zone between wakefulness and stage 1 sleep, dominated by theta waves. Theta is the frequency of absolute plasticity. It is the state of deep hypnosis, profound intuition, and pure creation. In theta, a terrifying and beautiful neurological phenomenon occurs. Your brain completely loses the ability to distinguish between the physical reality of the external world and the imagined reality of your internal world. The boundary between the observer and the simulation collapses. The analytical firewall is offline. The guard is gone. If you introduce a concept, an image, or a frequency into the mind during the hypnagogic state, the subconscious mainframe accepts it as absolute, unquestionable physical truth. It does not check your bank account. It does not reference your past traumas. It does not care about the laws of physics. It simply takes the data you provide and begins writing the architectural blueprints to render that data into your waking reality. This is the back door to the matrix. History is filled with architects who weaponized this exact window. Thomas Edison and Salvador Dali famously used the hypnagogic state to download their most brilliant inventions and artistic masterpieces. They would sit in a chair holding a heavy metal object, deliberately allowing themselves to drift into theta state. The moment they slipped too deep and lost consciousness, their hand would relax, the metal object would crash to the floor, and they would instantly wake up, pulling the downloaded quantum data back into the beta state before it faded. They understood that the Hypnagogic Gateway is not a place to rest, it is a place to hunt. It is the zero-point field of the mind. It is the control room of the simulation. And you have been walking past this control room every single night of your life without ever touching the keyboard. Before we can teach you how to write the God code, we must brutally examine what you are currently doing with this access window. Look at the nightly ritual of the unawakened human. Look at the behavior of the non-player characters. They spend the last 30 minutes of their waking existence actively destroying their own future. They lie in bed staring at the artificial blue light of a screen. They scroll through the pendulum theater of social media. They watch the news, downloading images of war, economic collapse, and human suffering. Or, if they put the screen away, they let their unmanaged mind run wild. They replay the argument they had with a coworker. They mentally calculate their debt. They project horrifying scenarios about what might go wrong tomorrow. Do you understand the mathematical catastrophe of this behavior? They are entering the hypnagogic state, the most programmable, sensitive, reality-altering frequency in the human biological system, while holding the vibration of absolute terror and lack. The analytical firewall goes down, and they take a highly concentrated package of toxic data and hand it directly to their subconscious mainframe. The subconscious does not judge, it does not protect them, it simply executes the command. It takes the feeling of poverty, the feeling of anxiety, and the feeling of victimization, and it accepts it as the new operational baseline. The human falls asleep, thinking they are resting, but inside the dark room of their skull, the quantum supercomputer is working flawlessly all night long. It is literally rewiring their neural pathways. It is releasing stress hormones into their bloodstream while they dream. It is actively aligning their reticular activating system to seek out more pain, more failure, and more resistance the moment they wake up. They are using the alchemy of creation to curse themselves. This is why they wake up exhausted. This is why their reality never changes. They spend 8 hours a night mathematically locking themselves into the prison of Matrix, and then they wonder why the universe is so cruel. The Matrix does not need to punish you. The Matrix simply provides you with the digital interface. You are the one typing the commands. A spiritual awakening requires you to take absolute sovereign responsibility for your brainwaves. You cannot claim to be an architect if you leave the door to your control room wide open for the system to dump its garbage into your mainframe. You must initiate a strict, uncompromising protocol for the final hour of your day. You must treat the hypnagogic descent as a sacred operational maneuver. You are not just going to sleep, you are logging in to the server, and you must ensure that your hands are clean before you touch the keyboard. We have diagnosed the vulnerability of the hypnagogic state. We have exposed the nightly self-sabotage of the unawakened masses. Now, we must install the operational protocol to secure your control room. You cannot rewrite the base code of your reality if your hands are covered in the digital mud of the Matrix. You must initiate a strict temporal quarantine before you attempt to access the Theta frequency. This is the 60-minute blackout. 1 hour before your physical avatar powers down for the night, you must sever all connections to the external simulation. You shut down the screens. You silence the notifications. You stop consuming the artificial panic manufactured by the system. You do not check your bank account. You do not respond to low-frequency messages. You do not engage in arguments that trigger your amygdala. You treat the final hour of your day as a highly classified decontamination sequence. The Matrix will fight you on this. Your dopamine receptors will scream for one last hit of digital noise. Your anxiety will try to convince you that if you do not worry about tomorrow right now, you will fail. You must observe this biological desperation with cold, cyber-stoic indifference. You say to your nervous system, "System alert, external inputs are now locked. We are preparing for a deep server upload." During this 60-minute window, you engage only in low-bandwidth analog activities. You read physical text. You organize your physical environment. You prepare your avatar for the descent. By doing this, you are manually slowing down your brainwaves. You are actively stepping out of the chaotic beta frequency and smoothly transitioning into alpha. You are starving the day of its emotional momentum. When you finally lie down in the dark, you are not dragging the chaotic debris of the 3D world into your quantum control room. Your mind is a blank, sterile interface. You have successfully bypassed the logical firewall. The vault door is open. The mainframe is waiting for your command. When you first attempt to execute the 60-minute quarantine protocol, you will likely encounter a massive biological resistance. You will lie in the dark preparing to enter the Hypnagogic Gateway, and suddenly your mind will accelerate. Your heart rate will increase. You will experience what the Matrix calls insomnia. But this is not a sleep disorder. This is a mathematical error known as the beta rebound. Your physical avatar has spent years addicted to the high-frequency, chaotic cortisol drips provided by the 3D simulation. Your neural pathways are wired to receive constant digital stimulation, constant emergencies, and constant pendulum swings. When you suddenly cut the power supply and force the system into silence, your amygdala panics. It believes that the absence of noise is a physical threat to your survival. To protect you, it artificially manufactures a state of emergency. It starts pulling up archived files of past embarrassments. It starts generating horrifying scenarios about tomorrow. It reminds you of the emails you did not send and the bills you have not paid. It is trying to force your brainwaves back up into the beta frequency so you can remain alert and defend yourself against an invisible enemy. The unawakened human reacts to this by getting frustrated. They toss and turn. They look at the clock. They get angry that they cannot fall asleep. Do you understand the physics of what is happening here? Frustration is the ultimate beta frequency. By fighting the insomnia, by resisting the awake state, you are generating massive amounts of thermodynamic friction. You are reinforcing the logical firewall. You are ensuring that the vault door remains completely locked. If you attempt to upload the holographic loop of your empire into your mind while you are in this frustrated, agitated state, the upload will fail. The subconscious mainframe will reject the data because the overriding frequency of your nervous system is currently broadcasting panic. You cannot install a program of absolute sovereignty while the hardware is screaming in terror. The chosen one must understand how to bypass the beta rebound without using force. Force creates counterforce. You must use the physics of divine indifference. When the Matrix triggers the beta rebound and you find yourself lying in the dark with a racing mind, you do not fight the system. You execute the cortisol-clearing protocol. You stop trying to force yourself to sleep. You stop trying to force the theta state. You simply become the silent, unbothered observer of your own biological machine. Imagine that your consciousness is pulling back, detaching from the physical avatar and floating above the interface. You look down at your racing heart. You look at the chaotic thoughts flashing across your mental screen, and you observe them as nothing more than raw, neutral data. You say to yourself, "System alert. The avatar is currently experiencing a cortisol spike. The matrix is attempting a software hijack. I observe the data, but I do not participate in the simulation." When a terrifying thought about your financial future appears, you do not argue with it. You do not try to replace it with a positive affirmation. You offer it absolute, chilling silence. You watch the thought rise, and you watch the thought dissolve into the quantum void. By refusing to assign emotional gravity to the pendulum, you starve it of its thermodynamic energy. The amygdala requires your active participation to keep the emergency protocols running. When you meet its panic with frictionless cyber-stoic indifference, the alarm system automatically shuts down. The cortisol stops flowing. The biological hardware realizes there is no actual physical threat in the room. And without your active resistance, the brainwaves naturally, inevitably begin to slow down. The chaotic beta spikes smooth out into the rhythmic waves of alpha. The heart rate stabilizes, the breathing deepens. You have successfully neutralized the beta rebound. Now, and only now, as the heavy, paralyzing weight of the Hypnagogic Gateway begins to pull you under, do you prepare your specific data packet. You must remember that the subconscious does not process the concept of time. It only knows the eternal present moment. Therefore, your sensory loop must not feel like a memory of the past, and it must not feel like a hope for the future. It must feel like an undeniable, immediate physical collision of atoms happening right now in the 3D interface. You wait until the exact moment the firewall dissolves, and you plant the God code with surgical precision. You slip through the back door of the matrix like a ghost, completely undetected. This is where you execute the architectural hack. You are lying in the dark. Your physical body is growing heavy. The paralysis of sleep is beginning to take hold. But your consciousness remains awake. You are hovering perfectly in the Hypnagogic Gateway, the Theta state. The unawakened human simply loses consciousness here and falls into random, chaotic dreams generated by their untamed anxieties. The chosen one takes the keyboard. You do not use words. The subconscious supercomputer does not speak English. It speaks the language of thermodynamic energy and sensory data. You must construct a highly specific 5-second holographic loop. This loop must depict a single physical moment that implies your empire is already fully built. It cannot be a vague fantasy of wealth. It must be the exact physical sensation of signing the final contract for your private estate. It is the feeling of looking at a secure global dashboard that proves you are financially untouchable. It is the absolute, chilling silence of knowing your bloodline is protected and your sovereignty is secured. You construct this sensory loop and you press play. You run the scene over and over again in your mind. With every repetition, you add more physical density to the simulation. You feel the temperature of the air. You hear the ambient noise. You feel the gravitational pull of the object in your hand. Because you are in the theta brainwave state, your logical firewall cannot reject this data. Your subconscious mind accepts this holographic loop as an absolute, current physical reality. You loop the scene until you reach thermodynamic saturation. You loop it until the feeling of the wish fulfilled is so overwhelming, so physically real, that your body genuinely believes you have already achieved it. And then you execute the final maneuver. You allow yourself to fall asleep while holding that exact frequency. You carry the encrypted code directly into the deepest layers of the quantum cloud. You have successfully planted the virus of massive success into your own operating system. To fully integrate this God code, you must understand exactly what happens to your biological hardware after you lose consciousness. When you carry that specific sensory loop into deep sleep, you activate the reticular activating system in your brain. The reticular activating system is the biological filter that decides which pieces of data from the infinite quantum field are allowed to enter your waking perception. By programming it in the hypnagogic state, you give it a new set of architectural blueprints. For the next 8 hours, while your physical avatar rests, your supercomputer is ruthlessly rewiring your neural pathways. It is aligning your biology with the frequency of the empire you just built in your mind. It is searching the quantum field for the exact people, circumstances, and coordinates required to render that holographic loop into the 3D interface. But here is the ultimate safety valve. We are not teaching you the lazy, passive manifestation of the unawakened masses. We are not telling you to program your mind and then sit on your couch waiting for the universe to do your work. That is a fatal glitch. That is the behavior of a victim hoping for a savior. When you hack the Hypnagogic Gateway, you are not manipulating the external world to magically drop a mansion on your head. You are upgrading your own internal software so that your physical execution becomes flawless. When you wake up the next morning, you do not wake up as the same node. You wake up as an administrator. Your physical avatar is now mathematically compelled to take massive, high-frequency action. You will find yourself making cold, calculated business decisions with zero hesitation. You will find yourself speaking to investors with terrifying authority. The procrastination and the fear that used to paralyze you are completely gone because your subconscious mind already believes you have won the game. You take the exact same actions you took yesterday, but because your internal resistance is gone, the universe yields to you. The doors that were locked suddenly open. The capital that was blocked suddenly flows. This is the kinetic rendering of the night. You programmed the code in the dark, and you execute the code in the light. You become an unstoppable thermodynamic force. The Matrix cannot defeat a being who uses the paralysis of sleep to sharpen their weapons. The code has been successfully transmitted. Your operating system has been updated. The illusion of passive sleep is destroyed. You now understand the physics of the Hypnagogic Gateway. You know how to enforce the quarantine protocol. You know how to bypass the logical firewall. And you know how to execute the Theta override to program your reticular activating system for absolute sovereignty. The time for letting the Matrix dictate your subconscious programming is over. The transmission is complete, but the file must be saved to the mainframe. We are utilizing this comment section as a quantum server. I do not want an empty affirmation. I require a binding execution contract. Go to the data log below. Do not list your anxieties. Do not feed the server with the narrative of your current struggles. State the exact specific 5-second holographic loop you are going to install into your hypnagogic window tonight. Show the network the exact architectural blueprint you are forcing the simulation to render. Seal your commitment into the system. Write, "I program the night." If you are prepared to receive the next sequence of the God code, secure your connection to the encrypted network. Initialize the subscribe sequence, because reprogramming your internal mainframe is only half the battle. Once you wake up and step into the 3D interface with your new frequency, the system will immediately attempt to locate you. The system attacks the loudest, most visible nodes. The unawakened masses broadcast their every move, their every success, and their every vulnerability to the public grid. They invite the pendulum of envy and destruction to tear them down. The chosen one does not operate in the light. In our next transmission, we will decode the physics of invisibility. We will teach you how to move through the matrix completely undetected. We will show you how to cloak your frequency, build your empire in absolute silence, and manipulate the physical board while remaining entirely invisible to the radar of the system. The architecture of your empire requires the weapon of stealth. Ensure your connection is secure. Prepare to disappear. The Matrix 963, out.